Barakata Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is I'ma Get the Beast on You. Pretty much, this is something that this one Jake said to us years ago, on 34th and 7th. He was talking all this stuff about Esau and the cops and this, that, and the other. And I forgot what the exchange was, but somehow he was saying that, he was going to call the cops on us. For whatever the reason was. I don't really remember all the details. This was years ago. And, I was listening to a video sometime last week. I'm not sure which video it was. I'm not sure if it was Elder Apostle Tahara's video or another brother's video. But for some reason, that thought came into my mind. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure what the video was. And started putting certain thoughts into my mind about the times that are coming. And a handful of precepts came to mind. I found them and kind of jotted them down. So now I'm getting around to, be able to do the lesson. So what you're looking at pretty much is a detention center. I believe this is when the so-called migrants were coming up from Panama and from other places down in that area, Guatemala and all that. And they were putting them in these places like this. And the reason why I got this picture is because this is what Esau plans on doing when, the shit hits the fan scenario, is these detention centers / concentration camps. But it's going to be far worse than this, because this is nothing. They can just push that or jump over the fence or whatever the case may be. But they're going to put things on total lockdown. And the thing is that you're going to have family members betray each other, which we're going to get that in the precepts, in the scriptures. And you're going to have people that are going to be put into situations where they either comply or they get caught up in the same things that they plan on doing to everyone else. So there's going to be a lot of betrayal, a lot of, divisions. You have already family members that don't agree with what you believe in, being a Hebrew Israelite, so they're already on edge about that, and it's going to be very easy for them because first and foremost is prophecy. It's going to be very easy for them to hand you over because, they already have that mindset where they don't like what you're doing. And they're going to be thinking, probably along two trains of thought, thinking that it's going to be better for you, to benefit you, to help you out, or to be able to save themselves, because things are going to be drastic out here. It says because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And we're going to see that, we're going to see that more and more as things get harder and harder. You're going to see that happening more and more as things get harder and harder, and the comforts that people are used to are not readily available as they were. And they're going to resort to, drastic, desperate measures. All right. So first precept that I want to get, which actually came to mind just before starting the lesson, is in the book of Jeremiah. I'm going to read a couple of verses, and then we're going to jump around. I got a couple of precepts. The Lord's will, it'll be an edifying lesson. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 9 and 1. It says, "Oh, that my head were waters." This is the prophet Jeremiah speaking. And this is why they call him the weeping prophet. Dealing with the condition of Jake, dealing with the situation of Jake. And at first, Jeremiah, was very sympathetic and compassionate towards Israel, because of their condition and because, they're his people. But after a while, when he started finding out what they were plotting and planning against him, he started putting curses up and say to hell with them. And pretty much this is the sentiment that you go through. Because you don't, when you first come into this knowledge, you don't understand everything. So what happens is you still have that conventional way of thinking, to help people out, if that's, your spirit, so on and so forth. But after a while of dealing with Jake, over time, you start to, come to the realization that Jake is gone. They ain't trying to, get right. They, and pretty much because they're blinded. But you come to that point where they start to irritate you. And this is pretty much what we see going on right now, in the world. Brothers are coming to that point where they're starting to get irritated with the people of this world, their so-called family members that are not in the truth, so on and so forth, to the point where eventually those same family members could be the ones that turn you over. It says, "In mine eyes, a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people." Because when you really think about it, there's times when you get mad at Jake, but then there's times when you still have that compassion, and then you still have that, you feeling sorry for them. But there's going to come a point where the Lord is just going to make a total separation. It's either you're on the Lord's side or you're on the devil's side. There's no in between. You're either in Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai's side, or you with Esau and Satan. "Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men." Now, a lodging place of wayfaring men was pretty much like travelers, going from one place to another. It says that I might leave my people and go from them, for they be all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men. And pretty much the Lord was setting Jacob back then to, pretty much fall up under the Babylonians, under Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire. All right. And this is the thing, this is why when you read the scriptures about Yahweh Shai, what would he do? Sometimes he would go to the wilderness. He would take his couple of the disciples with him. Sometimes he would just take the main three. Sometimes he would take them, all of them, to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he went to many times to get away from that rut, from that rat race, from being around Jake and seeing all of the wicked shit that they're doing and constantly plotting against them. And this is how Jeremiah felt, and this is how we feel sometimes. This is why sometimes, unless you have to, you don't want to leave the house, or you don't want to, you just go to and from wherever you got to go, do what you got to do, and get the hell out. It's like impossible to enjoy yourself, because the Lord is making that distinction. He's setting that boundary between the elect and the ones that are not a part of the elect. And they bend their tongues like they're bow for lies. And that's exactly what they do. And Jake loves nothing more than lies. So what you have to remember is, when the scriptures say they hate him that rebuketh in the gate, the only concern that they have is what? Get rid of this individual from my presence. I don't want him in my presence. He, you're hurting my eyes, man. And the reason why is because these words are constantly beating on them. Like the scriptures say in, St. John, the 3rd chapter, where it says that they hate the light. So they won't come to the light, because if they come to the light, their deeds would have to be reproved. They would have to repent. They would have to start afresh, anew. And most people out here, Jake, especially the older they get, they're pretty much set in their ways. So the mindset right now is there's a term. How does it go? Apostle Tar uses it all the time. Something bias. I think that's the term. I can't think of the term right now. If you brothers know what I'm talking about, you could put it up on the comment board. But they pretty much want everything to go back to normal. And right now, we're at the point now where it seems like everything is kind of calming down, and all that. But pretty much we're in the eye of the storm, and that's pretty much, it's always quietest before the storm, So we're pretty much in the eye of the storm right now. Normalcy bias. That's it. Normalcy bias just came back to mind. So normalcy bias is meaning people want to go back to the way things were, to a former state of how things were. So this will be pre-pan-D, you know? And you brothers out there know what I'm talking about. Right? So it says, but they are not valiant for the truth upon earth. Right? Because when you bring the truth out, Jake doesn't want to hear it. And the thing is, the longer you're in the truth, you know, the more you see that. You know, you see, you know, Jake more and more for what they really are. You know, you really start to understand more and more why the Lord is going to destroy in America 2/3 of Israel, and around the world He's going to destroy other Israelites. But you start understanding that more and more by interacting with them, and by when you show them the scriptures, they don't want to hear it. The same ones that claim that they believe in the Bible, when you bring out scriptures out of the Bible, they don't want to hear it. So that's how you know that there's nothing else for them but destruction. I'm going to read this quick precept that the up-and-coming elder put up, the head of the other Carolina camp, the brother Hawad. St. John 15:19, if you were of the world would love his own. Correct. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. And what is the sentiment when you hate someone? Remove them out of the way. This is why the Most High said, for Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I what? Have I hated. And what's the Lord going to do to Esau eventually? Destroy him. Remove him out of his face, out of his presence. Right? Let's get this one here. Zechariah 7:11. But they refused to hearken and pulled away the shoulder and stopped their ears that they should not hear. Correct. That's right. You know, and this is why the Lord is going to destroy them, because they keep pushing the hand of the Lord away. There's a reason why the scriptures say, seek ye the Lord while he may be found. So it says, and they bend their tongues like their bow for lies, but they are not veiling for the truth upon the earth. For they proceed from evil to evil. And they know not me, saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Right. So the longer Jake is in this society, the more corrupt they become. The water, brother, the water. The water. This is, I believe this is the elder, the young elder, Yaikwab from the main camp. Normalcy bias is a cognitive bias which leads people to disbelieve or minimize threat warnings. Consequently, individuals underestimate the likelihood of a disaster when it might affect them, and its potential adverse effects. The normalcy bias causes many people to not adequately prepare for natural disasters, market crashes, and calamities. Well, pretty much it's like being complacent. You know, being complacent, you know. All right, so going back. Take ye heed, but this is the point right here. Take ye heed every one of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother. For every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. And this is why you have to have a vetting process. The scriptures say that a brother may be known in adversity. You can't know if someone is really, you know, in your corner when you're doing good. You know, there's plenty of scriptures on that. The time when you know that somebody is really down and really with you is when you're down and out, and they're there to help, you know, help pick you up and help to get you back to where you got, you know, where you're to where you can stand on your own, so to speak, back up on your feet. You know, scriptures say that a brother is born for adversity. All right. So it goes on to say, and this is why it says, you know, take ye heed every one of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. And you have to remember that you're going to have a lot of individuals out there that's going to give the men of the Lord over. The prime example we have is who? Judas Iscariot. You know? So when you look at your family members and things of that nature, you have to keep that in mind. Now, not every brother out there, not every, you know, sister out there has a bad rapport with their parents or with their, you know, uncles, you know. Some of them might just be cool with them. They might just let them do what they're doing. But in most cases, your parents, your grandparents, your uncles and nephews and nieces and whatever are against you. Why? Because they don't accept the truth. It says, and they will deceive everyone his neighbor, right? And it will not speak the truth, right? Because they're not about truth. The truth is not in them. They have taught their tongue to speak lies and weary themselves to commit iniquity. And that's exactly what they're doing. And this is why they're going to get to the point where they're going to hand you over. Remember, things are getting tight out here. Things are getting bad. People are resorting to drastic measures, to try to save a dollar here and there and cut corners or whatever the case may be. Things are getting drastic. So to the point where they're using that as an excuse to not pursue certain crimes. Because they so-called can't afford, to pay these officers on the force to do these things. Because budgets are low. To where, not only are budgets low, but also they don't have enough members joining, to so-called police these streets. It says, yep, this is a good one too right here. Let me bring this out. 1 John 5:19, and we know that we are of the Most High, and the whole world lieth in wickedness. And this is why they're not going to accept this message. So it says, thine habitation is in the midst of deceit. Through deceit, they refuse to know me, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Yeah, because they'll be quick to believe in Renaissance Christianity, but they'll be quick to believe in a so-called white image of a so-called white Jesus, and those lies more than believing the truth. There's a saying that truth is stranger than fiction, and that is the case. Because when you bring out the truth, people don't want to hear it. You used to be able to say back in the days, the truth today is like the sighting of a so-called UFO, but you can't even say that nowadays because there's so many sightings of the chariots all over the world that, you can't even, you got to find, something else, to use as an example, or like seeing a Yeti or something like that. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will melt them and try them, for how shall I do for the daughter of my people? And this is what's going to happen during the time of Jacob's trouble. This is the Lord melting them, bringing them down, knocking them off that pillar because of their pride. And they refuse to seek the Lord through their pride. It says, their tongue is as an arrow shot out. It speaketh deceit. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in heart he layeth his weight. Matter of fact, I'm interested to know what this will say in another version. For their tongues shoot lies like the poison arrows. They speak friendly words to their neighbors while scheming in their heart to kill them. Right. And how is that? Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to necessarily stab them in the back, but they could be responsible for having them being taken in Esau's traps and Esau's nets. But what they don't understand is that when that happens, the Lord is going to deliver his elect out of the hands of Esau. Now, the only ones that are gonna perish, so to speak, of the elect are the ones that are to glorify the Lord in that fashion. Other than that, no matter what they do, scripture say, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. You may be in that trap, as it says in Psalms 124. But the Lord said that trap or that snare is going to be broken. And we have examples of the Apostle Peter when he was in the prison and the angel came and delivered him out of the prison. put a deep sleep on everybody else and came into prison, shook, get up, and the Apostle Peter was like, and he put his robe on, and followed the angel out of the prison, and the angel broke him out. You see? It says their tongue is a deadly arrow. It speaks deceitfully. With their mouths they all speak cordially to their neighbors, but in their hearts they set traps for them. See? And what are the traps? Giving them up. Why? Because the way that things are rolling now and the system that they're establishing is going to be, you have to be a part of it in order to benefit from it, in order to eat. So what better way for some of these people to do that than by betraying their neighbor, betraying their uncles, betraying their nephews and nieces, so on and so forth, betraying one another. It says, shall I not visit them for these things, saith the Lord? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? And this is why this is going to be the final countdown, the final destruction. Prior to the missiles coming, this Jacob's trouble is going to be vicious. But the Lord said that he's going to deliver Jake out of it. But then once it's done and said, then the missiles are going to come and finish the rest. All right, so now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Matthew 24. And let's go to the 9th verse, because these are some of the precepts that came to mind dealing with this subject. Matthew 24 and 9. We're going to read a couple of verses here. So it says, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Now this happened back then, but it's also going to happen now. Let's go to Revelation, because this was written after Matthew, right? Revelation 2 and 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison. And we know it's not going to be the spiritual demon Satan appearing on the earth with a suit on and grabbing people and just throwing them into prisons. This is talking about the authorities that are going to be doing this. And they're going to be working for the elite, so-called elite. Because these governmental agencies are controlled lock, stock, and barrel by those that own the corporations of the world. It says that you may be tried, see, and you shall have tribulation 10 days, meaning a certain amount of time. There's going to be that trial. It could be exactly 10 days. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 3 days. It could be a month. Who knows? The Lord knows. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Why? Because we're coming to the point now where it's going to be very important when it comes to decision making of taking this M to the A to the R to the K, which is the C hip. Because that's the wave of the future. This is not what you see happening around the world is not a coincidence that everything's going digital. That's not by coincidence. That is by design. First and foremost is prophecy of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. And the ones that he's using to push that prophecy are the so-called elite of the society, the international banking families. You could call them Illuminati, you can call them Luciferians, whatever you want to call them. That's who's doing it. So, going back to Matthew 24 and 10, and then shall many be offended. Yep, even in the truth. And shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Why? Because first and foremost is prophecy. Second of all, it's going to be about necessity. As they say, survival of the fittest. It's going to be every man to each his own. Every man is going to, try to do what they can for them and their families to survive. Especially the ones that don't have this truth. It says that many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. We see that happening. And because iniquity shall abound, meaning iniquity is sin on top of sin on top of sin, transgression on top of transgression, shall abound, meaning shall increase. The love of many shall wax cold. So that warm, and you pretty much see that now. Back in the days, you see a Jake, or Ephraim or whatever on the streets, you would say, what's up or how you doing, People would greet each other. Nowadays, is they looking at each other like, if you look too long, you got a problem? What's up, partner? Crazy shit like that. Because the love of many has waxed cold. And iniquity shall abound. So what do you think is going to happen once, they don't have any stuff? When people have nothing to lose, they lose it. Didn't Jerusalem say that? In a roundabout way. So it's going to get really bad because of necessity. The lack of bread, as it tells us in 2nd Ezra 15:16. It says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Why? Because these are part of the final trials and tribulations that have to happen prior to Yahushua coming back. See, that's why he told the disciples, and your patience possess your souls. They had to endure certain things back then and now also. It says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So we're coming to the point where it's being taught, and we're coming to the point where, all the big trouble, which is Jacob's trouble, is about to really break. Because it's happening. We see it happening, but it's going to intensify. It's already here. It's just going to intensify. And the thing is that these devils manipulate things. So it's seeming like things are kind of sort of going back to normal. You see people starting to, starting to get comfortable. And then that's when they lower the boom on them, because that's what they do. Once everybody's guards are down, that's when they strike. You see? Like when the PD hit back in 2020, everybody was nervous and scared, wearing masks. Everybody was wearing masks. I mean, the way they painted it was like there was this horrible, thing out there that the boogeyman's gonna get you. So you're like, oh shit, But then out they said, nah, this is bullshit. Not saying that there wasn't, something out there, but not to how they made it seem, that you would transmogrify into an animal or a beast or something like that. Just kind of joking, but you know what I'm saying? So everybody was on their P's and Q's, but now everybody's kind of not too worried about it. And this is when them devils strike, when people's guards are down. Hey, that devil's sly, man. The Lord didn't make him more subtle than any beast of the field for no reason. All right, now let's go to Mark 13. It's the same. Well, actually, this is going into similar, but it's worded a little different, but it gives you a little bit more detail. Matter of fact, I'll start at 9. It says, but take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues you shall be beaten, and you shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. And in Matthew it says, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. All right. And the gospel must first be published among all nations. That's what's happening before the end can come. But when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what you shall speak. Neither do ye premeditate, but whatsoever shall be given you in that hour, that speak ye, for it is not ye that speak, but the Holy Spirit. So when Moses went before the Pharaoh, the Most High told Moses he was going to make him like a god to Pharaoh. And the Lord put the words in Moses' mouth, in Aaron's mouth, to speak to Pharaoh, to say the things that they had to say prior to the Lord delivering Israel, or actually prior to the Lord bringing the plagues upon them and then delivering Israel out of Egypt. Today, this is the modern day Egypt. And the same thing is going to happen now. So when that time comes, whatever it is that we have to say, the Lord will put that in our mouth to say it. However it's going to come out, whatever it's going to be, whatever the message the Lord is going to be, which is going to be pretty much the same messages that we're teaching, but it's going to be, however the Lord sets it up. It says, now the brother shall betray the brother to death. And this is the point right here. That's why, the name of the lesson is, I'm going to get the beast on you, because you had this individual, this Jake, back on 34th and 7th. He had came to the camp. Now, I'm not sure if this was before. I'm not sure if this was before YouTube or after or during the time of YouTube. But he was talking, about the system and the pigs and this, that, and the other. And something happened. And he said, I'm going to get the beast on you. But wait a minute. Wasn't you just talking shit about the beast? So Jake is going to be one of the main culprits in causing a lot of other Israelites to get caught up, in these traps. You got Judas goats. So now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, and children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to what? To be put to death. You see? And you shall be hated of all men for my sake, for my name's sake. Because this name of Yahweh and Yahushai carry a very heavy vibration. If we were so insignificant, you wouldn't have all these devils coming after us, trying to stop this word, trying to feed, this poison that's been swept up under the rug. Inside joke. But they wouldn't try to be pushing that poison that they're pushing to try to, take Jake away from the message, or take the message away from Jake. But what they don't understand is the Lord, they were actually working for the Lord, because the ones that the Lord doesn't want, those are the ones that are going to get caught up in that madness. Yeah, this is a good precept the brother put up. Let me get this. Micah 7:5, trust ye not in a friend, put ye not confidence in a guide, keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. Right. So trust ye not in a friend, put ye not confidence in a guide. Because at the end of the day, to be totally honest with you, this is, every one of us is really on our own. This is why the Apostle Paul said, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. We can't hold hands and walk into the kingdom. We don't even know if when the time comes, if we're going to be together. You don't know. We'll see when the time comes how the Lord is going to do it. Beautiful. St. John 17:14, I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. That's right. And that's part of the reason why, or that's the main reason, not part of, that's the main reason why they're going to betray, and try to, and give brothers up. Just another good one. Luke 21:5. 15. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all of your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. That's right. And the brother just put up the scripture we just read. So, finishing on here, and you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Why? Because it's gonna be bad out here. It's gonna get hairy out here. And that's the spirit, because the brother just put the scripture up, the next scripture that we were gonna go to. So let's go to it. He got it on the comment board for you, so you could read it. So Luke 21, and 12. We're going to start at 12. It says, but before all these things, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons. They're going to get the beast on you. They're going to try to get the beast on us. Being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. And this is the point here. And you shall be betrayed both by parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends. And some of you shall they cause to be put to death. So the betrayal is going to come from our own people. Which we're going to show you in the next precept, that I have, which, you brothers already know about it. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but there shall not an hair of your heads perish, Because the Lord is going to have a hedge, around his elect. The angels of the Lord encamp around them that fear him to deliver them. He giveth his angels charge over thee, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. So there are certain men and women of the nation of Israel that will be protected all the way through, no matter what. And that's, amazing just to think about that. With all hell breaking loose, people getting blown away, killed, locked up, doing all kind of stuff. There's going to be certain individuals out there that are a part of the elect that are not going to be fazed by that, not going to be touched by that. And even if they get caught up in those concentration camps / detention centers, somehow, some way, the Lord's going to deliver them out of it. It says, in your patience possess you your souls. So now let's go from there to the book of 1 Maccabees. I'm sorry, got the wrong. Let's go to the book of 1 Maccabees. You brothers already know what the deal is, where this is going. 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men. Why? Because you had a situation where this devil Antiochus Epiphanes was persecuting the Israelites. And, in other nations, but he was persecuting the Israelites because he wanted everyone to conform to the Greek laws, to Hellenization, as they call it. And you had certain Israelites that were maintaining, being an Israelite, but it became hard for them. Things were getting rough, And what happened? They turned coat. It says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So these are wicked men, and a lot of them were part of having Israelites put to death. A lot of them that sold out were actually the ones that were given meat, that pork, to Jake to eat or be put to death. Like in the case, I believe his name was Eleazar, the older man. He was in his 80s. Those were people that came up with him, that sold out, that gave him up. And they said that at first they had the love for him, they felt bad for him. They said, just eat the lamb, act like it's, so on and so forth. And when he resolved to say, nah, fuck that, that same energy that they had to have compassion on him, it turned to hatred for him. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. There's going to be a very hateful, nasty spirit out here when there's a lack of everything. That, even though the love really ain't there like it used to be, whatever little bit is there is going to be gone out the window once all hell breaks loose out here. It says, so this device pleased them well. So he said, when he said that, when these wicked men said that to these other Israelites, they said, oh, this device pleased them well. Yeah, let's do that. So what did they do? They joined unto the heathen. It says, then certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. So what were they doing? You had Israelites, training in these gyms, but naked, like the heathen, because the word gym means naked, from the word gymnos. And you're not supposed to look on other people's nakedness, and made themselves uncircumcised. See, and how did they become uncircumcised? There's a term, I believe it's called epispasm, which the term epispasm means, I believe that's the term. It's when you take skin and sew the foreskin back on the penis, on the rod. And that's what they were doing. But also they became uncircumcised, what? In their mind. And that's where you get the whole Hellenization and the whole Greek thing, the Hellen. There's no difference between the Jew and the Greek. Why? Because they're both Israelites. Just one was speaking Hebrew, following the law, statutes, and commandments. The other one was speaking Greek, following the customs of the other nations. So they became uncircumcised in their heart. It says, and forsook the holy covenant, see, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. And that's exactly what they did. They were sold to do mischief. So let's go from there. Let's go real quick to the book of Daniel 11. And you had Israelites that were making leagues with these nations. Some of the tribes did it, there was all kind of bullshit going on in the different empires. You had sellouts among Israel, even to this day. Daniel 11:14, it says, and in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. The king of the south here was Ptolemy. I believe it was the fifth. We hadn't gone over this history in a long time. And he was a very young king at the time. And his father, I think his father got either killed or assassinated. I forget how it happened. And I just, kind of went over a little bit of the history. And eventually he was entrusted to someone. I forgot the guy's name. And he was supposed to be set up. But what happened was Antiochus and others, which not Antiochus Epiphanes, I think this might have been Antiochus III, which was his father. They plotted against the king of the south, which is Ptolemy, I believe it's Ptolemy the fifth. And what happened was Israel, you had Israelites that joined with them in league to help them overthrow the king of the south, but it didn't work out. Why? Because of the prophecy. Because it says also the robbers of thy people, which is who? Israelites. The robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fail or fall. Why? Because it didn't pan out. But the point here is that you had Israelites joining themselves to the heathen, to the other nations. Just like you had it going on many times. Now, in this case, they didn't come against other Israelites, but the point is that they join themselves with these heathens. Another example that we have is in the book of St. John chapter 11. And right here, it says, conspiracy to kill Yahushua. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council, and said, what do we? For this man doeth many miracles. So they wanted to find out, look, we have to do something about this man, Yahushai? Why, I mean, they weren't so much as concerned about the doctrine, even though, they considered it to be a heresy. They were really more concerned about losing their money, losing their status, because they were living lovely. I mean, I remember Elder Pastor mentioned about how Caiaphas was living in a palace. So they were living the life. They were ripping the rest of Israel off, lining their pockets, living good. So when Yahushua came on the scene, it started messing their money up, because you started to have what? Those that converted, or proselytes to Yahushua, to the doctrine of Yahushua, that were a part of the elect. So what happened? Members started leaving from that way that the so-called Pharisees and Sadducees were pushing. So less members means what? Less money. And they were put up in that position by the Romans. You see? And they were coming against the Lord Yahushua, trying to figure out what they could do. So what was the outcome eventually? Not in this council, but eventually they put him to death. They had him put to death. So that's pretty much they got the beast on Yahushua back then. Just like they're trying to get the beast on us now. When the wise men came to Herod, they asked where the king of Israel was born. They wanted to go worship him. And Herod got nervous, and Israelites got nervous. Because they didn't want that to happen. Because they were comfortable in the position that they were in. Just like you have Israelites today in prominent positions in this society that are comfortable. And they don't want to lose that. That's why they'll talk shit about the truth. They won't accept the truth. So it says, if we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him. And the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. Why? Because these pacifists, they were set up to be pacifists or pacifiers. To keep the people in check. But if they turn to the Lord, what happens? Same thing that happened in Rome. That's why I believe that was Tiberius or Claudius. I think it was Claudius that kicked all of the Jews out of Rome. Things would get rowdy. So they no longer need their ancient Pharisaical and Sadducee Martin Luther King and Al Sharpton and your Creflo dollars back then in the ancient world, because they were back there. You best better believe they were back there, and they were up in them prominent positions, getting paid like they're getting paid right now, off of the back and sweat of their congregation. And if they were teaching the truth, there would be nothing wrong with that. The Apostle Paul said, if I reap unto you spiritual things, should I not reap your carnal? Or if I sowed unto you spiritual things, should I not reap your carnal? But when they're teaching lies and they're pretty much got their congregation in total oppression, that's wicked, man. So these pacifists, they're going to get dealt with. You're going to be dealt with severely. So let's go real quick to Philippians, an inside joke, 2:15. It says, I started at 14. Do all things without murmuring and disputings, that you may be blameless and harmless, the sons of the Most High, without rebuke. This is the point right here. That's a lot right there too. But the point of the lesson, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, because Jake is a crooked and perverse nation. That's what the Lord said. How have you turned into a strange vine of a degenerate plant unto me? Beautiful. Let's read this here. Acts 4:16, saying, what shall we do to these men? Right. This was with the disciples. For that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them is manifest to all them that dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it. So what would happen? They would pretty much be at the point where their services would no longer be needed. It says that it spread no further among the people, let us straitly threaten them, that they speak henceforth to no man in this name. That name carries a heavy vibration. This is saying the same exact thing, that goes along with the lesson. I'm going to get the beast on you. Yeah, and they were causing a lot of Israelites to get put to death by the Romans back then. You had a lot of Israelites that were getting crucified, man. So it says, Philippians 2:15, that you may be blameless and harmless, the sons of the Most High without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Yahushai, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. Right, because our labor is not in vain. This labor will be rewarded. But there's a catch. He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. And the elect will endure all the way to the end. Bottom line. So let me see. I think I have one more precept here. Let me see what this says real quick. And if not, we can end it here. Matter of fact, I'm going to read the first two verses. The word of the Lord also came unto me, saying, Son of man, thou dwellest in the midst of a rebellious house, which have eyes to see and see not. They have ears to hear and hear not, for they are a rebellious house. That's why they won't listen. And when the time comes and this word has no place in them, what do you think they're going to do to the men of the Lord? Look, get them right there. That's them right there. All to save their skanky little hide. Now, when we jump down, matter of fact, start at 26. Again, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, behold, they of the house of Israel say, the vision that he seeth is for many days to come, and he prophesies of the times that are far off. Therefore say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, there shall none of my words be prolonged any more. But the word which I have spoken shall be done, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Right. So this is going to go down. Because Jake is not going to change, because it's prophecy. So the time of Jacob's trouble is going to be a very hard, vicious time. But the Lord said he will deliver the elect out of it. And if we be a part of the elect, the Lord will deliver us out of that storm that's coming, that Edomite storm that's coming. So with that, this has been, I'm going to get the beast on you. Lord's will, you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom, and to water to you brothers for putting them precepts up. They help, the lesson along. So like if I didn't get to all of them, but the water nevertheless. Shalom.